Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Brett.
Welcome to our podcast, Let's Be Curious Together. Today on our podcast, we're going to be talking about neurodivergence in parenting. And
Because we are parents.
we are parents. We have 4 children. We have 3 girls and 1 boy. And their ages are 9, 7, and almost 5. Those are the girls. And then our boy is 4 months old.
Yep.
So actually, when we started this podcast, I was freshly, 2 months postpartum?
Something like that.
Yeah. Yay. And my brain still worked. That's questionable, actually. Today, we just wanted to go through some of the things that have shaped us in our parenting, because parenting is a huge part of our life. We're both are extremely committed parents, and we are full-time, like all in. We homeschool our kids. They're with us all the time. Brett works from home. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and we love our children being in our presence 24/7 and vice versa. We love being in their presence. And we've chosen this life, and often we think we're in this conversation of neurodivergence. It's not the easiest choice, actually, and we'll break that down a little bit later. But I have a lot of friends that have had babies, and starting the stage of life of marriage and then babies, and the best advice that I like to give new parents is parenting will bring out the absolute worst in you and the absolute best in you.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I live that every single day.
Absolutely.
I think it's often surprising how you see yourself rising up as, for me, mama bear, like rising up. It pulls things out of me that I didn't know I'd had, like strengths. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I'm like doing things either instinctively or not instinctively, being pushed to come up with better systems, being pushed to go to the next level, and in a great way. And then other times on the flip side of the coin, it's these battles with myself of my nature, of like who I am, how I'm hardwired. We do need to turn our phones off. How I'm hardwired. And obviously too, like we pull all of the tools that we had growing up in our own homes into our parenthood, and, reconciling what we want to keep and what we want to not keep from those.
I think let's take a second there for, I think it was Danny Silk who we listened to who made that reference, is like we have our childhood that happens, our upbringing, and as a kid we're observing, right, and we're recording like everything that's happening and how parents handle things, and and then we have this moment of self-realization of, I don't like the way mom and dad are doing that, or I don't like the way they're doing this, or I do like the way they're doing that. And then we say to ourselves, I'm going to do things this way. This is going to be my plan. Or I'm not going to do things that way, right? And then when the moment happens that we're now a parent and the same situation repeats itself, it's funny how we reach into the toolbox of the subconscious and we pull out the very tool that our parents used, that we said we would never use again. We're like, why am I holding that? Like, what is going on right now? Why is this the thing I reached for?
Yeah.
And it's usually after we've already used it that we're like, I can't. I'm just like my father. I'm just
Stunned.
like my mother. Oh my goodness, how did this happen? Right.
Turning into my mother. Yes.
And it's because that's the only thing the subconscious had, right? Was that tool. And we pull it back out, and then we're like, whoa, hold on a second. And I think there's just I say this to say there's so much about the parenting journey, when you say it brings out the best and the worst of us, that is so refining. There's so much about the parenthood journey that is so refining for you as an individual, because it's forcing you to confront like every belief,
foundational
and paradigm,
yeah,
and core motivator.
Yeah.
You've got like, the kids are going to flush it all out, and they're going to question everything.
Yeah. And so acknowledging too the years between, I forget what exact ages, and I'm not a child psychologist, but I try to pretend to be, but I love information. So it's something like this these years of ages, 0 to 10, say, are extremely formative years, or just 0 to puberty, whatever that might be.
It's like 2 to 10 or something.
2 to 10
sure.
or something like that are extremely formative. And there are things foundationally that are happening that are getting ingrained in our children that can never be taken out. Do you know what I mean? So
I know.
not only is that pressure, not only is that pressure for us, but also just acknowledging with grace, like that is what happens to you as well. And
What an ironic thing though, in like, the cruel irony, let's say, that the years that we are most lost and just trying to figure it all out, have no idea what we're doing, are also the most formative and like
for our children,
setting the foundation. Yeah, as parents, like the first years are like,
we're vulnerable.
I have no idea.
Absolutely.
What I'm doing. I am completely winging this, right? And how cruelly ironic is it that the exact same years that I'm most vulnerable and I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm just learning it as I go, and winging it is also the most formative years
for the children. I know.
Laying these foundations.
Yes. And like, not to mention for women in our journey of pregnancy and postpartum, and all of the changes that happen in that time, all of the hormonal changes, but also just the hardwiring, neurological changes that are happening. It's such a transitionary phase.
It's got to be really tough.
Yes. Oh, it's totally tough. And like, the body you once had, you'll never have again, but you're meeting a new version of yourself. You're meeting a new person. Literally, you're a different person.
Yeah.
Physically, in your heart, in your mind, and you don't return back to anything. Like when you become a mom, it is done. Like, you don't, I would say when you become pregnant personally, because that's the moment when you really like start carrying another life in you, and it's just transformative. But we do the best we can. And I've never liked this phrase. I've never really, it always feels like a cop-out when I hear people say it, but the truth of the matter is we really do the best we can with the information that we have currently. And my parents used to say that. Like, there would be times when my dad would be like, he would throw his hands up and he'd be like, well, I did the best I could. And it was, in a way, a moment when we were confronting him about something, so it felt like a cop-out. But I understand that now.
Right.
I understand that phraseology, and I understand why he said that. And he may not have gone into depth with it, but I can go into depth with it now and say, you literally only have the brain, the partner, the financial circumstance, like the financial, economic status that you have, the resources you have, the community that you have, all the factors put in place together like a puzzle is literally just the best it can be. And you can, replace puzzle pieces and add different puzzle pieces over the years, but nothing is going to be perfect. And you can't, if you strive for perfection, you're just going to stress yourself out. But, in this race, or in this very, very vulnerable stage of life, I think it's so important to just take a deep breath and say, this is one of our favorite phrases, right? We're doing better than we think we are.
Doing better than we think we are.
We're doing better than we think we are. And we're
closer now than we've ever been before.
It's a good phrase for you and me, because we are very deep thinkers. We're pretty hard on ourselves. And
critical,
it's hard for us to let go and just say, we're doing the best we can. Yeah. But literally that is what we tell ourselves, is we're doing better than we think we are. Because in my mind, I'm doing a terrible job. I'm thinking about the 2 to 10 years old. I'm thinking about all the mistakes I make. I'm thinking about all the times when I've snapped at my kids. I'm thinking about...
it's pretty typical of us as neurodivergents to have the hyper awareness of, and the self-grading and self-judgment, and be thinking about all of those missed opportunities, like the brain.
It's a construct.
The brain's running 100 miles an hour.
Yes.
While the body's moving at 5.
And cause and effect. If this happens, then this is going to happen. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. And I'm going to have to pay for it later. And she's going to be blah, blah, blah because I did this. And it's this mapping system in my brain.
I know. And, I remember at being 10, 11, 12 years old, looking up to 22-year-olds and 24-year-olds, and I was like, they must have it all figured out. You know what I mean? Like, these are adults. That was literally, I remember I had this opportunity where I was hanging out with the college groups, you know what I mean? As 10 years old, 11 years old. And I'm like, these people have their life figured out.
No.
And now here I am in my 30s going, you know nothing in your 20s.
You know nothing. And I would beg to say, people in their 40s don't know anything. And people in their 50s don't know anything.
I'm still figuring it out.
Maybe when we get into our 60s, we know something. But I'm starting to see like the decades that way too, because I'm 36, right?
Yeah.
And I'm nearing 40. And I feel like at 36, I'm like going through some 30s mile markers. And I'm like, okay, I'm not caring as much about what people think of me as I used to. So that's good. Check. You know, like different things like that. But the years from here on out, I feel like are gonna fly.
Sure.
But yes.
I say this to say that it brought a lot of perspective and grace for me to my own parents to realize as I've walked this journey. And then I remember myself at 10 looking up, because that was the perspective from a 10-year-old is thinking 20-something has got to figure it out. Of course, at that point, my parents were already in their 30s, right? So they must really have it figured out. And now here I am in my 30s, and I'm like, they were still really just winging it.
Mm-hmm. I think they've maybe figured out that they don't know anything. Like, or maybe they figured out how much they don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Maybe that's the thing they figured out.
And there's plenty of grace now to say, wow, yeah, we're all really just trying to figure it out. But I think what we want to talk on today is specifically, you know, to us as neurodivergents and some of our neurodivergents in the audience of like where this hypercritical side comes in, you know, and you know, we've asked ourselves these questions, and some of these we know others have asked themselves, which is, am I a terrible parent? Right? Because, you know, am I a terrible parent because I really value my alone time, but I also want a big family and I also want kids, you know, but I really like being alone. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, just really quick, like the concept of being hypercritical of yourself and of others and your environment, and like I think there's a huge trap of that in parenting because it's just so messy. It's so messy. Having children is messy.
Messy?
Yes, messy. The house is a mess. There's so much screaming, like chaotic noise. There's just the noise in general. Well, we have 4 kids. Not everybody has 4 kids, but and 2 dogs and a cat. But your plans, your careful steps, whatever careful steps a neurodivergent person may have had before kids, they're different now. The rhythm is different. It feels, if I would say it's safe to generalize and say it feels messier. So
I mean,
internally and externally.
We spent so much time just trying to balance ourselves, and we weren't even there yet when we got married and started having kids. Right, as neurodivergents, like
we got pregnant 4 months after we got married.
Our system and like, how can I just be a functioning human? And now it's like, and now I'm responsible for another human, and I haven't even figured out how to be a functioning human myself yet.
Yeah, yes, and I think I just in prefacing like what we're going to talk about today, the mess and the chaos and just a lot of balls in the air can feel like there is a lot that you're not doing well, and you can hold a lot of tension in yourself. I think a lot of parents carry a weight of, am I a terrible parent because this is happening? Am I a terrible parent because that's happening? Or, is this going to be a lifelong trauma that they're going to have to deal with? Like, our generation's very wrapped up in trauma, I think. I think us millennials, I'm so proud of us because we're cracking the ground on what traumas are really. And then the emotional healing and the emotional intelligence that can be adopted because of things that happen. But I feel like there's just a lot of information we have. And as neurodivergents, we really want to go deep with information, but oftentimes we need to actually really dissect things. So you and I just want to dissect a couple of things today.
Yeah, well, you mentioned a weight. Is it, so the question of, am I a bad parent because I want to spend time alone?
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Has that been a weight for you?
Yes. So my alone time. So as a single person, I had plenty of alone time. I would go home. I had a roommate, but I had a lot of alone time. And a roommate's very different than a husband's very different than a child. But when I got married to you, that was the first like break in my like, I don't have any alone time anymore. Like, and as I'm a youngest in my family, and I am the type of personality that is very, very much a loyal person to whomever I'm around that I really love. So when I got married to you, I definitely like latched onto you and really enjoyed married life, but I didn't have any alone time, and I didn't realize that that was a need that I had. I think newlywed phase, I was just like very excited to just be married. I got pregnant 4 months after we got married. And I really wasn't alone. There was a baby.
Yeah.
And
So
I'm
just
telling
shortly
you,
after our first anniversary.
this is gonna sound crazy, but I literally was aware all the time that I was not alone because I was carrying a child. It was loud. There was a lot of things happening to my body that I was hypersensitive about. Pregnancy for me is not something that I can just ignore, or not something that is easy breezy beautiful. It is challenging. It is difficult. There is a leech. There is a parasite thing happening, stealing all of my nutrition.
So you're feeling your energy being depleted, and you're feeling overstimmed.
And I feel the presence of that child in me.
That's what I'm saying. It's overstimming to you because
it's very overstimming.
You're always feeling something else.
Yeah. Pregnancy is extremely much a marathon. And then labor, I really enjoyed because I feel like I was able to use my tools of very in touch and in tune with my body, digging deep and like going through something really hard and challenging. And all my labors were super fast. I'm the type who like pushes twice and they're out. And I feel like my moment to shine was in the emergency and
what a typical neurodivergent response.
No, it is. And I really, really shined in labor. I really did.
Right.
So
now fast forward. You got a baby.
I've got
infants.
So we'll just fast forward to now. I realized with all the kids, there are questions to field, especially as they get more curious about the world. There are a lot of conversations to be had. There's a lot of teaching. I want to give my children all the information that they could ever need or ever want. And I remember our first daughter, Gia, I would spend so much time with her, just like one-on-one, just like going over rules on how to or boundaries on what was safe and what was not safe. And I am digging deep with this. Okay. I am definitely, and everybody would marvel, like, wow, she understands, and she listens to you very well, and she knows what you're asking her to do. And I was just extremely communicative with my children and ever present always. And that's the type of parent that I naturally fall into. But in the back recesses of my consciousness, I definitely ignored this huge need I had of being alone. So with the impulse and the instinct to be all in with my children, in order to pull away to feed my own need of being alone, I feel extremely guilty all the time. Like I still do. And I started going and getting my nails done, or going for a drive, or, going out with the girlfriends, or trying to, remove myself to find peace. But when I remove myself to find peace or to find quiet, I would spend a lot of that time feeling guilty and trying to sift through why I felt this way. And it was just this battle of, is it natural for mom to go on her own? Because I'm realizing that it's almost like you and I are one because we're married. It's almost like, and this isn't, I don't think necessarily true, but it's almost as if mothers are not separated from their children. Mm-hmm. Like we are connected in the DNA, of course, but like spiritually, soulfully, we are connected genetically. So for me to need quiet, or for me to need to remove myself, I started to find ways to do that didn't feel as guilt-ridden, thankfully. But yeah, it was like a huge deal for me. And I felt extremely guilty because I needed that separation, but I didn't, but I needed it, but I didn't, and that
So
was
explain what
really
it would
hard.
feel like for you when you don't take the alone time.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle, like what's happening inside. How's that?
So, tension would build, just a lot of tension. If I don't have silence and quiet, I would say my nerves get shot. My nerves feel like they're really raw, and I'm starting to snap. I'm like at you, at the kids. I'm starting to like answer quickly. I'm starting to, any problem that would come to the table, in my brain, I would feel like it was just a massive undertaking. Any question that was posed was annoying.
Your capacity was
My capacity
gone.
was absolutely full. Like it was exploding essentially inside, because I didn't have any like reduction in I was like over. Yeah.
You just kept piling things on.
Yeah.
And then it would literally be the straw that broke the camel's back. Like
the
smallest of
the
things.
feather that was like wafting down, landing softly, would just like make me explode. And I hated that. I hated that even more. And of course, that's when you have collateral damage. You have like, I would have you like going, what the heck are you doing? And are you okay? Like, and then I'd have to clean up the mess with you, and I would clean up the mess with our children. And I still do to this day, like actively apologize for things like that. And learning to have those conversations of, Mom wasn't okay in that moment. And so I'm sorry that I spoke that way to you. That was not right. I would say over the years, I've gotten better at taking quiet for myself. And that honestly looks like putting my noise canceling headphones on while I'm at home and while I'm amongst the children.
Knowing that they're safe and that they're taken care of.
Or not. No, just kidding. Yeah, they're safe and taken care of. And I've asked for help with the baby. So now we have 4 kids, including a baby. So if I just need some like removal in proximity from the kids, I can put my noise canceling headphones on, get in the kitchen, create a meal, and like fill up my cup that way. And I'll ask our 2 oldest, our 9-year-old and 7-year-old, just to keep an eye on the baby in the bouncy seat in a safe place. And just have those moments. And I feel like the rhythm is getting so much better now that they're older, and they're not as in danger as they usually are when they're toddlers. And they're learning what boundaries of safety are. So now it's getting better. But when I had a 19-month-old and a newborn, when I had a 22-month-old and a 4-month-old and a puppy. Hello, we got our puppy. It was I definitely went through postpartum depression. I definitely went through like a tough season of that. So I feel like now it's getting easier because they're more independent. But with young toddlers, there's no break. You can't do that. You can't leave them in a room,
Right. Well, you gotta work your breaks out in other ways. You have to prioritize your alone and recharge time.
Yes.
In different times of the clock after they're asleep or whatever.
Yeah. But going back to like you sending me off to go get my nails done and stuff like that, instead of it being like something I could work into the rhythm of my day to give myself little releases here and there of pressure, and I would instead go on like a 3-hour nails trip. I would spend that whole 3-hour nails trip just like decompressing emotionally, and just like on the verge of tears, feeling guilty. Like, why am I like this? why can't I figure this out, get my crap together? And it was more like a tailspin
Yeah.
than it was like a good strategy session of, oh yeah, I'm just going to take some 5 deep breaths and I'm going to be, so I hope that's clear. I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think just on this topic, I think you and I saw this differently.
Mm-hmm.
The alone time stuff.
Yeah. So what about you?
I grew up with parents that put some clear boundaries in place. Let's just put it that way, that were like, that there's going to be a part of the day where kids, you're going to play, you're going to focus on something else, and I'm going to have quiet time.
Can we bring up really quick what your mom did and what my mom also did? We realized this.
Sure.
So our moms would lock the door.
Out with us outside.
Lock and of course, this was after a certain age. We can talk about age. Just to be fair.
The society is what it is now.
Yeah, before there were rapists and whatnot, traipsing the streets. But they would lock the doors, lock us out.
Go play outside.
Yeah. Play outside. Yeah. And that was really, really hard for me. But now I get it.
Yeah, now you get it.
I haven't done it. Well, I have done it. But just like because I gave them, okay, you guys are outside for 10 minutes. Like literally it was just 10 minutes. And I was anyway.
10 in the backyard or something.
Anyway, so that's just like a little sidebar of a boundary that both our moms would draw to get their quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To get their recharge. So I grew up with that kind of as a model. And so I'm like, yeah, I guess that's normal, just to do just to create space, right? In a safe way. So, it wasn't nearly as much of a struggle for me.
Right.
To get around that concept. It didn't feel like I was being a terrible parent, because that's what I had seen modeled, and I had a great experience. You had a terrible experience.
The way that it affected me to be locked out.
You.
Yes.
I, on the other hand, wandered off into the woods and was hoping I didn't get called back in. You know what I mean?
You built igloos.
That was a positive. So I was like, hey, this is fine. I don't know what the problem is here. Yeah. But I just want to say that, through that question of am I a terrible parent for wanting alone time? And we've been through this, and I think that it's a real positive thing that you've come through this now, and now we're modeling to our kids what boundaries look like and how to prioritize yourself, and how there can be both in this conversation of, I want to show up for you in the best way I can. And one of the things that I need to do in order to show up for you the best way I can is to be the best, on it version of me. And that requires me taking some alone time right now so that I can show up for you in this relationship. And I've seen that really shine through.
Good. Has it worked? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
You've seen it work.
I've seen...
Things have gotten better.
What's really encouraged me is I have seen it be repeated in our kids.
Really?
And now our kids are starting to realize when they need a moment to recenter.
Isn't that cool?
And they'll excuse themselves.
They will.
And they'll say, hey, I need a moment to gather myself, to calm down, to recharge, whatever. I'm going to go read a book. I'm going to go take a nap. They've realized that's okay to put a boundary, prioritize your health, and then come back so that the connection in the relationship can always be strong and not be put in jeopardy. Right. So
if we can now go into that really quick of, while I was learning to do this for myself, we were in a parenting class learning
we have
how
many.
We've taken so many. We needed lots of help. Parenting class, learning how to have a conversation with your children about self-regulation.
Right.
Okay. So and setting boundaries for our children to learn how to empower themselves to come off of a ledge, to step back from the ledge type thing, while I am learning how to do that for myself. And I did honestly, I think I did totally see the parallels and like take some of the tools for myself and whatnot. But that's one of the hardest things about being a parent is you're often learning for yourself the lesson that you are trying to teach your children at the
Yes.
very same stinking time.
Right.
So yeah, so the language that we've incorporated into our kids' lives and our home is when there is conflict, or when our kids are having an emotional reaction about something and they are screaming and crying, and that's when we will speak very calmly to them and say, your emotions are out of control. Or what do you exactly do you say?
How do I say it?
Yeah, how do you say it?
Hey, it seems like you're having a hard time controlling your emotions
There
right
it is.
now.
Yes.
Would you like some help? Or would you like to go to your room and see if you can go figure it out?
Yeah, and there we can get into a deeper conversation of when it's appropriate to remove them from the situation, if they really do need like silence and quiet in that moment, or if they need a hug instead. Yeah, that's another topic. But I do believe that I've seen us really grow in that, and the kids really grow in that too. And we're still seeking to make it a language in our home of feeling all right. Let's do a self check inside.
Yeah.
And it's not this like woo woo, let's like take a 15-20 minutes on it. It's just quick. It's just a little touch point.
Yeah. And it really isn't about I need to be away from my kids. It's I need to be able to show up as the best version of myself. And that's the same thing that we've tried to set as the culture in our home with all of us, is to say it's most important that I show up as the loving, caring, compassionate, empathetic, human being to you in this relationship, whether it's you, it's the kid, and them to each other. It's how do we show up as our best self for each other?
Yeah.
And there's some self-care that needs to happen along the way in order for us to be able to show up as our best self.
Yeah.
And so taking personal responsibility for our own emotional state, taking personal responsibility for our own, energy, resources, our emotions, it's like all of that, taking personal responsibility so we can show up as the best version of us and make this a really fun relationship and not drag everyone else through,
Yeah.
Not that we can't all have bad days or we're not there to support each other, because we are.
But those neurodivergent people, or any person that's lived in this chronic state of tension here and here, and this chronic place of fight or flight, we don't understand what real relaxation is. We don't understand what self-care is, and we need help.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk about, there's this teaching class that I took, and I forget what it was through, but it was a teaching class, and she was talking about tapping into the 3 levels of the brain. There was fight or flight. There was one in the middle, and I can't remember what it is. And then there's executive function. And when you're teaching children, you're always aiming to get them to a place of executive function, right? And a lot of times in that class, we would talk about tools to get them out of fight or flight through that middle stage. Forgive me for not remembering.
So
to executive function.
The amygdala, the limbic system, and then the prefrontal cortex.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Amygdala being your fight or flight, your limbic being your emotional, and then the prefrontal cortex, your executive function, your
so from
reasoning.
fight or flight, you would hop into the emotional, which would be make connection, help them feel connected, and then from there move them into executive function to be empowered to take action.
Sure.
So one way to move them into connection is to if a kid's like having a tantrum, screaming, crying on the floor, is to kind of, approach and say, your face is like this. And your body's like this. That tells me that maybe something's going on inside. And observing from the outside helps the kids make sense of, this is the message I'm sending to the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if my face is like this and my body's like this, and they see it reflected in the other person, it brings this self-awareness
Mirroring
of what's going on. Yeah, the
mirroring is so powerful.
It's so powerful with kids, but
but physically and conversationally,
yeah,
it's so powerful.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's not wrap further. Okay. So what I want to say about this story is, you have done that for me so many times, honey. Like, you're like, sometimes you're like, why is this, like, why do you have a big crease here? Or like,
I've never said that. Not once.
I'm making that one up.
No.
Okay, so what will you say to me? You'll say to me like,
your face is not showing when I think you think it's showing. Like,
you seem, your face looks like you're thinking about something really hard right now. You want to share?
Hey, are you feeling okay? What's on your mind? And you're like, I'm fine. I'm like, that's not what your body is saying right now.
Yes. And we'll be talking and having great like chat time, and I'll be like light, and then you'll feel my energy absolutely shift and get heavy, and I won't say anything. And you'll say, hey, you just got really quiet and you're looking down.
Mm-hmm.
You okay?
Like this.
Your face looks like this. No, you help me so much, because I don't often realize that that's what my body language is doing.
You're so honest.
Yeah, I am honest. And, I was that little girl looking at her mom while she did the exact same thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Life is just crazy like that. It's repetition, whatever. So for you doing that for me, like they taught in this like teaching class, moves me into a place of connection with you, where I can say, hey, somebody really understands me right now. And there's an invitation to connect. And I'm not alone anymore in my subconscious, I might add, my subconscious thought patterns. And I like am able to connect with you, and then just like it helps me get out of it quick. See what I mean? Those funks that I might slip into. Sure. Or if I'm like making a really nice dinner and something stressed me out, and I'm all of a sudden just trying to like get it done quick so that it can be over, and like, you remind me, that we can slow down or something like that, through the way that you observe me. And oh my goodness, it's just been such a huge game changer.
Oh.
It's been huge. It's been huge.
That's awesome.
And we do that for our kids too. Mm-hmm. And that observational mirroring is just a really great tool. Anyway, so what's the other question we had?
We had a couple more questions.
Yeah.
So another one was, am I a terrible parent because I know my kids need structure, but as a neurodivergent, I prefer not having it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This one's been tough for me because, I mean, we read all the books, right? We go to the parenting classes.
We don't read all the books, but we read some.
A lot of books. We go to the parenting courses. We talk with other veteran parents, and they're like, structure, consistency, discipline. Not like discipline
kids thrive on structure.
Consequence, but discipline, like, everything is
discipline
structure.
In the teaching sense.
Correct. And man, all three of those are opposite of ADHD, right?
Yeah.
ADHD does not naturally have structure and routine and daily disciplines, and it is one of the hardest things for me to stay consistent with little things every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, because with the dopamine deficiencies, ADHD, people with ADHD need those novelty quests to feed your brain with spikes of dopamine because of the excitement and the adventure. So breaking,
right? Yeah, we're dopamine deficient.
Yeah.
So our baseline level is like catastrophically lower than everyone else. So it's like it's at the level that most people would be in a depressive state. And that's where we are on the daily. So the reason we chase, like you said, novelty, excitement, adventure, whatever, is because those bring our dopamine levels back up to normal to make us feel like everyone else. Not even like super exciting and warm, just okay, and not like struggling, right? And so
So a routine
is like complete opposite. Routine brings zero. It is a drain.
And no matter how hard you try, taking the trash out to the curb is just not novelty, and it's not exciting.
No. So anything that has to get done, that I know has to get done, and it's routine, it's an alarm. It's an alarm in my phone that is going off to tell me to do it, because
you've gotten so much better at that.
There's no part of my brain or my being that wants to remember routine.
You literally forget.
Yeah, it literally writes it off. Everything that's routine's gone. Yeah. So parenting now, I have many times been like, I am a terrible parent because I am the opposite of routine, and I am the opposite of daily consistent, input and output. As much as we do create structures for our kids, we do create things and rules and expectations for them that are repeatable and so on. It's not like we change that. I think we've done pretty good at that. Like we've done pretty good at saying, yeah, you're gonna have a consistent bedtime. Yes, you're gonna have a consistent.
You're gonna brush your teeth.
Routines right through the day. What we're expecting of them, their chores.
Yep.
School.
Well, that's been me. Let's be real.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, neither one of us has decided to break that system and throw it out the window.
No.
We haven't said, whatever. Who cares about sleep? Who cares about, these times are just all arbitrary. It doesn't really matter. The chores, that's whatever. It doesn't really matter. And just, we've both been in partnership on, no, these things matter and we are going to stick to them. And we've been, setting them in place for our kids. But us keeping to them and remembering to keep to everything that we have set has been tricky.
Yeah, I can speak for myself, but I just want to dig a little more into you. Like, so what ways do you find yourself interacting with the kids that does feed you or that does provide excitement and that does work for you, other than like the routine stuff?
Well, I mean, I would say it's the routine stuff that has there's a few things that are routine with the kids that I have stuck to, like bedtime. The bedtime
Yeah,
routine.
You've done so good. You do bedtime.
I do bedtime.
I cover for you when you're not here, but you do bedtime, yeah.
So 90-something% of the time I'm doing bedtime, and there's certain things like that I have established and I've been able to keep to, right, and stay consistent in, and those have felt great, even though they're not my nature. There's been reward in that, which has been really nice.
What can you describe that reward?
Relational equity and growth, and definitely realize them communicating to me that it's a special part of our bond.
Oh. Well, you guys have a prayer that you used to do when you were a kid, and your dad and mom, I think, both came up with this prayer or something. It was mostly your dad, but it was something that you guys memorized, and then you have taught to our daughters, and you say it every night. And I love listening because sometimes it's like reciting it line by line, word for word, in a nice cadence, and then other times it's like like you can't even understand a word anybody's saying because it's like as fast as they can go. And then I think you've made it kind of a fun game where you've I mean, you can speak on this, but I believe you've like switched it up where certain girls can say a certain line, and then you've kind of tossed it around and mixed it up, and they know all the words to it, but it's been a routine, but it hasn't necessarily been a copy and paste type of experience.
No, the thing that's been copy and paste has been me showing up at the same time every night for us to wind down and, you know, get ready for bed.
You guys will, how do you wind down?
It's the way that it's the fact that I show up and the time and all that, you know. That's what's been consistent. How we get through that time has been a wild card, you know. That's where I allow myself the flexibility to mix it up. There's the things that we have to do, but the order in which we do them and what other little, you know, twists and turns along the way we can make. On the flip side,
well, can you share some of the things that you do to wind down with them?
well, I'm about to get into that. So on the flip side of this negative, though, I will say I've realized is, I think it's been a good balance, because there's the consistency of them knowing at this time of day Dad's going to show up and we're going to have time together. But I'm not 100% about routine. So how we spend that time together and how that wrap up happens is different, right? I will show up and we're going to get this.
Which works really well for them because they don't want to go to bed. And it's this like exciting,
right?
Who knows what's going to happen tonight?
Exactly. It's a new experience. We don't know how it's going to play out tonight. The same 5 things are going to get checked off the list.
Aww.
But how it's going to play out is going to be brand new.
Yeah.
So it's been a good balance for me as, you know, an ADHD person to have enough of the routine that there's something that's they can rely on and they can bank on, but enough flexibility that I can just be me and be spontaneous and go with my whims, and they have a sense of what's going to happen next, you know. And so that's been fun.
So you guys wrestle?
I mean, it could be anything. It could be 101 questions that the peanut gallery is asking me. It could be wrestling. Could be cuddling. You know, whatever. Every night's a new adventure. Sometimes it's all 3. Each one of them is doing something different.
You are such an incredible dad. I'll walk in on you guys, and I totally agree. This is an incredibly rich relational time for you guys. But I'll walk in on you guys, and you'll be like, sometimes you'll be like flat on your belly, like your head in your hands, and they're just railing on you, just like beating on you. And then other times you're like flipping them over and tossing them in the bed, and other times you guys are like totally chill. Somebody will like, you'll be laying on your back with your leg kind of crossed over your knee, and somebody's head will be on your belly, somebody will be in the crook of your arm, and another person will be like leaning on your knees or something, and you guys are just talking. And then other times like you're laying in bed, like on the bottom bunk. We have a triple bunk on the bottom bunk, and it's just so wonderful, and they love their time with you. So I would say that's a version of you leveraging something in a really smart way. You may not see them in a very consistent way throughout the day, but you do see them. You know, like we've talked about before, your presence in the home is very there, but your time with them, your routine, which is a hard one for you, is at night. And you've been willing to kind of lay down your other plans. You've been willing to, you know, break your momentum in work. Say you get a burst of momentum at, well, this one might be at like 7:00 or something, and at night, which does happen to you.
Yeah.
You've been willing to break that for yourself to go invest in your children, and that has created a lot of stability. It's gone very far. Do you know what I mean? In the other ways that it might be hard to participate in the routine, that's been a well worth like investment. Yeah.
There's definitely a pattern in our home of us choosing to and setting structures up and routines up, like organizational structures or routines or whatever, and then us, like, how do I say this? Like, we had to build them, right? Put them over there, and then adhere to them. Like, okay, it's there, it's going. I just need to jump on board with it, right? It's like I've built the train and started it downhill. I just have to hop back on it again and keep riding it. Versus us having like an internal driver, right? Where we're having to remember to do each of these things every day and then actually do them and deliver on them, which is usually impossible for us with our natures to actually keep those daily routines. So we created this like rolling stone situation that it's got momentum. It's going to keep rolling. We just have to hop on it. And the whole family's expecting it. They all know, what the routine is.
Yeah.
And they keep to it. They keep us to it,
Yeah,
and we
they
just
do.
have to jump on it.
They help me remember so much, babe. Oh my goodness, going to the grocery store really quick. Going to the grocery store now. So our oldest is 9. She was helping me remember what we need to get from the grocery store like 4 years ago, right? And then eventually the 7-year-old started. Now
All three.
The almost 5-year-old is today she said, Mom, we need sandwich baggies. And I was like, yes, we do. And thank you so much for reminding me. Wow, we've been out of sandwich baggies for like 3 months. So, sandwich baggies.
Yeah.
And I just praised her. Oh my, I made a huge deal about it. And I was like, you get to be the one to help me now. Your sisters have been helping me for a long time. Anyway,
Are we, just like, side note, short-term memory is one of my things.
Short-term memory is definitely a weakness of mine as well. So
normally I have a notepad, right, as my external short-term memory. Are you using our children as your external short-term memory?
Yes, I am.
Nice.
I will. I'll tell them, can you remind, and they'll be like, Mom, you said blah, 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 blah. I'll say, you know what? You're right. When we leave next time, can you please remind me?
Yeah.
And it's up to them. It's up to them. If they wanted a special thing, they'll remind me.
Oh, I used them the other day as my external short-term memory. I was going into Walmart and I had 3 different directions I had to go and I didn't have something to write on so I could remember. And I gave each one of them the 3 things that had to happen. I was like, this is what you have to remember. This is what you have to remember. This is what you have to remember. And that's all they would focus on was each of their own like thing they had to remember. And I was really
So
impressed by our 9-year-old because she remembered rear differential fluid. She didn't even know what it was. She's like, "What is that?" And I explained what it was then, but she was murmuring under her breath as we walked through rear differential fluid, rear differential fluid. And we finally got to the stop, the place we needed to be to find it. And I was like, who remembers what that was? And the youngest is like, I do. I was like, what is it? And the words just wouldn't come. And then number 2 is like, I can tell you. I was like, all right, what's it? Like, oil. I was like, you're on the right track. The oldest, I'm like,
She remembered.
What is it? And the oldest was like, rear differential fluid.
And it's honestly, that has become a low-key strategy of mine to deal with the onslaught of tasks that they assign me. Do you know what I mean? So not only do I have tasks for myself, but my children assign me tasks. So it's things like
requests.
This belongs to Jim and Papa's. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do this. We need to do that. And I'll just put it back on them and I'll say, hey, can you remind me the next time we go out to Jima and Papa's? And then they have a job. You know what I mean? So it's really helped me. I would actually love to break right now. And we're going to actually split this into 2 parts.
Well, I want to finish what I'm saying here. So.
And then we'll split it into 2 parts. Sorry, I thought you were done.
I just want to say that in this level of what we're talking about here of kids needing structure, I just prefer not to have it, I think the positive spin on that is that although we are not super fluent in structure, we're really teaching them how to adapt and to pivot and to have flexibility, right? How they can stay open to new possibilities.
Yes.
Right.
I'm glad you wrote this down.
And, you know, although we don't have like rigid structure, we always are consistent in emotional safety. And I think that that is an invaluable skill for our kids to have, you know, is to learn those things. And
what do you mean by emotional safety?
I mean that we're consistent in the things that are relationally important. They know they can expect that we're going to show up, that we're going to love them, that we're going to take care of them.
Our presence.
Yeah. Our love for them.
Our consistency with them.
Our consistency in that sense.
Yeah.
Although our tangibles and deliverables may be inconsistent, right? Our routines and structures might be inconsistent. Our relational connection with them is always consistent. Our love for them is always consistent.
It's so true. Can I talk a little bit about homeschooling?
Go ahead.
Really quick? So in terms of like these bigger, did you call them anchors? What'd you call them? The bigger things that we set in our schedule that might change within them. Like you do bedtime routine at night, but the things that you do within it might change. I forgot what you called that, but homeschooling. So we've been doing chores for 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have been doing chores every day. We've been doing chores. So they expect that we're going to do chores. They expect a hot breakfast. They expect we're going to do chores after breakfast. And so what has become their chore list has changed over the years. And now we're paying them for a couple things, and they're responsible for other things. But they have been doing chores. You know what I mean? Like that's a no-brainer. And I feel like the chores thing is such a hot topic with friends, because not everybody has that willingness, diligence, I'm realizing, to enforce chores. And I'm over here like struggling to like enforce like stuff and be consistent. But chores has been a major thing in our home for such a long time. And I have to give my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law credit for that, because my sister-in-law taught her kids how to work hard and show up and be disciplined. But their chore system in their home became such a thing where they would like begrudgingly be doing their chores every day, doing their chores. They can't go anywhere until they do their chores. They can't have special privileges until their chores are done. And it was just very like matter of fact. And I really I observed this for a very long time before I had kids. And what I saw was they started to get faster, so more efficient. And they started to it was a no-brainer. They didn't have to think twice about what they were doing. They were just getting it done. They were getting it done quickly and well, which took a lot of time and follow-up from the parents.
At the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning. And they created this life skill in their children, okay, that a lot of kids struggle with, we might add, because of chores. And I saw that and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. You know what I mean?
Teach them discipline and hard work.
Just like no brainer. And even the things that I struggle with like task oriented things that might take me a long time or whatever. I'm thinking, okay, my girls are going to and my son, they're going to understand what it means to get things done well and quickly. And then we're going to train for that now so they can focus on other learning curves when they become adults. Do you know what I mean? And they're not caught up with having to keep up with cleaning a toilet. They're not caught up with how to clean a kitchen quickly and then get out the door. Like they can function in a way where basic home things are just easily taken care of, no brainer. And then they can have capacity to focus on other learning curves that they have in their life. So chores we've been doing chores for 5 years. Homeschool is that I noticed with homeschool, and I just want to like point this out, you know, just vulnerably, if you will, that I have noticed that I am on about a 2 week schedule with homeschool. So we'll be really consistent for 2 weeks.
You have a pattern.
I have a pattern. We'll be really consistent for about 2 weeks, you know, 5 days a week, going hard at it. And then we'll take a few days off, or we'll take a week off, or whatever. And then we'll be consistent again for 2 weeks. And so in this 2 week pattern, so we always do math and phonics. In this 2 week pattern, I might tack on sign language. And that sign language, that stint of sign language, which isn't a requirement, it's just an elective that we're doing, that stint of sign language would last for like 2 weeks, and then it would drop off. So I noticed for me as a neurodivergent mother and teacher, I have about a 2 week cycle with homeschooling. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So it's these unit studies, these like, you know, we'll write it off as a unit study. You know, unit studies work for me. Unschooling works for me. No. It's funny because the patterning, and I have been homeschooling since, I think for about 6 years actually.
Yeah.
Because pre-K was when we started. I mean, homeschooling pre-K is like nothing, but I'm counting it. So, about 6 years now, and that's something that I've noticed about myself, and I have learned to keep an undercurrent of the absolute requirements, and then to sprinkle and feed whatever fun thing that we have on our plate. We have a microscope. I'm getting ready to pull that puppy out.
Right.
We're going to be...
This is your mix of routine and adventure.
This is my mix of routine and newness.
Right.
And like, you know, the
required studies, the subjects that they have to do, the state requires or whatever. We'll stay routine in those and consistent. We'll
stay routine, and then we'll be able to bring in other things and get really creative and do those quests of like something new. You know,
go to the aquarium.
Yeah. Oh yeah, random stuff like that.
Field trips.
A no-brainer. But when it comes to like in the house, like mundane stuff. There are a lot of things that we're doing. We're sprinkling in on the side. And I think that's what keeps it exciting for us, for me, is the, you know, having the foundation of the routine, but then being free to just change things up. And it's not completely changing things up. It's not overhauling them. It's not uprooting them in their consistency, because we are being consistent. But it's allowing us all to kind of breathe and just like see learning also as an impulse thing.
Yeah.
Learning is an impulse.
Yeah.
We're feeding our we're feeding our appetite of seeing the world, our curiosity, and that is so important. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
And so when the routine, when the consistency gets mundane, which it's, you know, it does, you know, it's not completely, but it does. It's good to say, hey, you know what, this isn't working. Let's scrap it. You know, let's bring in something else that you're really excited. What are you excited about? Yeah. And let's pursue that.
Right.
And that's that unschooling side that I really love.
So let me bring this in, because I think this really just leads to what we were talking about right now. This is connected. This next question we had. And it says, I break my own rules or structure. Is that confusing for my kids?
Yes.
Does that make me a terrible parent?
Okay,
right?
So you talked about resiliency the other day, just the other minute. You talked about resiliency. We're teaching our kids resiliency. Okay, so this has been a huge conversation with us, with you and me, is when I establish routine and I break it, what kind of message am I sending to my child? Can they just establish their own routine and break it? I mean, the ultimate answer is, well, yeah, of course, whatever, duh. But when you're teaching children how to be consistent and how to show up, what we have,
and most everything is through modeling.
Most everything is through modeling. How are they going to hold a job if they think that they can just give up on it, like mom and dad give up on their own plans? You know what I mean? Like literally. So, I mean, with the chores thing, with the anchors that we have, I feel encouraged by those, and I feel like that's good and healthy. But when it comes to terms of like me turning my back on my own word, on something that I've established, I will be very open with the girls and say, hey, you know what? We tried it. It was fun for a little bit, and it's not working for us anymore. Or if we stop something and nobody notices that we stopped it.
Which you secretly hope.
No, that's happened so much. That happens so much because like little kids, they don't notice.
Mm-hmm.
I find my girls would, if they really enjoyed something that I had put into place and then mysteriously it stopped, later on, months later, they'll mention it. Hey, Mom, why did we stop doing that? Or, hey, Mom, I really liked that. I will, come close to them and I'll look them in the eye and I'll say, tell me about that. Did you really enjoy that? Like, what did you like about that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll like extract like the value that they saw in that, and I'll hear them out. And I'll say, I'm so glad that you enjoyed that. And like sometimes I leave it there, and then sometimes I'll say, should we do that again sometime? And we will. We will do that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I have these conversations of their opinion matters to me, and I don't want to just like slosh them around in the back while I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. It is a conversation, an ongoing conversation, but bottom line, I have noticed that it has to be healthy. It has to feel healthy for me, but likely it will also feel challenging for me to maintain something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, the long and short of that is basically, in general, as neurodivergents, we devote our energy to making sure we maintain the things that are absolutely like mission critical, let's say, the things that are required, the things that we know we can't not do, right? We are like, okay, we are going to give a lot of our energy to make sure we absolutely get these things that are necessary, that are critical done. And then we give ourselves the freedom to bend and sway and change direction and be adventurous in the things that are not absolutely critical, the things that can move. We try and leave ourselves that freedom and not be stuck in rigidity, so that we're able to play on both of our strengths. We're able to show up in the structure enough that they get what they need, but the freedom enough that we don't feel like we're dying.
And I think something about you and me that's different than other people with neurodivergence that I've met, not everybody is like this, but a lot of people are like this, is that I think when we're not self-aware of what we're doing, everything is on a whim of our own desire. But I think that you and I have tried to get self-aware so that we understand how our actions affect others and the ultimate fallout or the ultimate like consequence of these things
Right.
on our children, on each other,
Yeah.
and then on our community.
Right.
So let's take our break.
Let me finish.
Well, we could talk about a lot in
Let
our
me
next
finish.
episode.
I just want to say that I wrote this down here, like the perspective that you take right there with the kids when you get to on their level and they bring something up and like, hey, why haven't we done that again? I love when we did this or whatever, or you forgot or whatever, and you get on their level and you connect with them. You showcase to them humility. And I think that's really, really, really powerful. Because you're modeling growth and humility rather than pretending to be perfect.
Yep.
And showing our kids what it looks like to evolve and adjust, and really prioritizing connection over control or connection over system, right? It's like it's about this relationship,
the system thing, yes,
more than it's about the thing that we do, right?
And in that moment they are allowed to question me. In that moment they are allowed to say, Mom, why did you do that?
Right.
Instead of me trying to save face and say, oh, they don't need to understand why I decided to stop that. We're not going to talk about that. It's me being open to, how did this affect you? And me being there for you and you explaining this does not mean that we have to go back to whatever that was. But instead, I'm just going to draw near to you and say, I value your perspective. Tell me about it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to go back to the thing. We don't
You're
have
seeking to understand.
seeking to understand the
agree.
babies. Yes. And they don't have to get that experience again right then
Right.
for them to feel satisfied
Yeah.
and connected. Mom can draw near to them and understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's happened to us so much. So much. It's
We
crazy.
talked about that one on the show before, but the understanding, seeking understanding
Versus agreement.
versus agreement.
Agreement would mean that they would get to go back to that fun thing that they love to do that I set.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding would be just me understanding their experience.
Yeah. And why they want to go back.
Why they want to go back. And
all of it. And you can seek understanding and wrap your mind around and fully get on their level of everything, of why, all their reasons and their excitement and whatever. And like, yeah, I could totally see why you feel that way. I can totally understand why you're excited to go back. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be and that's why we're doing that right now. You know, it's like, yeah, it's great. And I'm glad we connected over this. So,
so we're gonna continue this conversation. Can I just end it really quick?
Yeah.
We've noticed that our podcasts have been getting pretty lengthy, so we kind of want to chop this one up into a bite-sized piece and then do another bite-sized piece the next week. So we'll continue this concept, this conversation of neurodivergence and parenting, in another episode coming up. We'll ask more questions of, I feel like a failure because,
yeah,
and more. So
see you guys in part 2.
Yep.